My name is Callie Monroe, and I'm 33 years old. Last June, I was supposed to be standing in a white dress, holding flowers, staring down an aisle at the man I thought I'd spend my life with. Instead, I was unpacking a single duffel bag in a motel room that smelled like old carpet and bleach, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. If you'd asked me a year ago to describe my life, I would have said it was steady. Not glamorous, not tragic, just solid in a way that made sense to me. I had a decent job in data operations, a shared apartment in a decent part of town, a fiancé who checked all the right boxes on paper. Logan Hayes and I had been together for 5 years, engaged for 1. We met at a friend's birthday party. One of those overcrowded rooftop things where the music's too loud and you pretend to like everyone. He handed me a drink and made a joke about how we both clearly didn't want to be there. I laughed, he laughed, and by the end of the night, we were trading numbers and pretending it wasn't a big deal. It was, though. Within a year, he'd moved into my place. Within 2, we'd upgraded to a bigger apartment for the future. Within 4, there was a ring on my finger and Pinterest boards full of wedding nonsense I only half cared about, but told myself I should. Logan was smart, charming, ambitious. People liked him. He worked in project management at a tech company, always talking about launches and deadlines and team drinks. He could light up a room without trying. Standing next to him, I felt chosen, wanted. Like maybe I really was the stable one he said he needed. For a long time, I thought we were building something real. The cracks started showing about 4 months into our engagement. At first, it was small things. He'd get irritated when I asked how his day went. Not curious, not probing, just, "Hey, how was work?" The question every couple asks on autopilot. He'd shrug and mutter, "Fine," without looking up from his phone. He started going out more with coworkers too. Happy hours, team bonding, late night drinks. There was always a reason, and all of them technically made sense, but they sat wrong in my stomach. One name floated up more than the others: Sabrina. "Who's Sabrina?" I'd asked casually the first time. He'd said, "Oh, just someone from my team. We used to date forever ago. It's not a thing." I told myself not to be weird about it. People have exes. People work with exes. It's not illegal. Still, every time her name popped up in a story, Sabrina said this, Sabrina did that, my chest got tight. I'm not proud of what came next. I got insecure. I started checking the clock when he was late, started asking more questions. What time will you be home? Who's going? Is it just your team or other departments too? I could hear myself turning into that girl, the clingy one. The one whose name you roll your eyes about over drinks. But something in my gut was screaming that things weren't right, and instead of listening to that voice, I turned it inward and labeled it paranoia. Looking back, I know I wasn't trying to control him. I was trying to hold together something that was already coming apart. I suggested date nights. He canceled last minute. I planned a weekend trip to a nearby cabin, just the 2 of us, no phones, no work. He forgot he'd already agreed to help a friend move. I picked up his favorite takeout one random Tuesday, candles lit, table set, trying to recreate the way we used to be when just eating together felt like enough. He barely glanced at the food when he walked in, said he wasn't hungry, and went straight to the bedroom to answer emails. Every attempt I made to connect was met with a wall of indifference that grew thicker every week. The explosion happened on a Wednesday night in March. I'd gotten home from work around 6. The apartment was quiet, and the silence felt heavier than usual. I made dinner, pasta, garlic bread, salad, something simple but warm. I set 2 plates. The clock ticked past 7, then 8. No Logan. By 9, the food was cold. I reheated my plate, ate alone, tried not to stare at the empty chair across from me, like it had personally insulted me. At 10:32, I heard his key in the lock. He walked in smelling like a bar. Beer, cheap cologne, that stale tang of too many people in one room. Light stubble on his jaw, shirt half untucked, tie shoved in his pocket. "Hey," he said, dropping his bag on the counter. "Why are you still up?" "I made dinner," I said. My voice sounded too calm in my own ears. "You said you'd be home by 8. He glanced at the stovetop, at the still-covered pan. "Oh, yeah, sorry, we went out after work. Team thing." "With who?" I asked. He rolled his eyes. "With my team, Callie. The same people I always go out with." "You could have texted," I said. "Just to let me know you weren't coming. I was waiting." "I'm an adult," he shot back. "I don't need to check in every hour." I didn't ask for every hour. I asked for a text when plans changed, I said. That's basic respect, Logan, not surveillance. He snorted. Here we go. My fingers curled around the edge of the counter. Here we go, what? You, he said, flicking his hand toward me, hovering, questioning, picking apart every move I make. It's exhausting, Callie. I'm not picking apart everything, I said, heat rising in my cheeks. I'm asking where you are when you disappear for hours without a word. I'm trying to understand why you'd rather drink with coworkers than spend time with your fiancé. Because my coworkers don't interrogate me the second I walk through the door, he snapped. The word interrogate hit me like a slap. I'm not interrogating you, I said quietly. I made dinner. I waited. You didn't show. I asked why. That's normal. He laughed, a short, bitter sound that didn't reach his eyes. You've been like this for months. Clingy, needy, insecure. It's like you can't breathe unless you're glued to me. The apartment seemed to shrink around us. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the ticking clock above the stove, the faint buzz of traffic outside, every sound too loud. I'm clingy because I care, I said, because something feels wrong and you won't talk to me. Nothing's wrong except your paranoia, he snapped. You're suffocating me, Callie. I need space. From you, from your questions, from your insecurities, from all of this. There it was. You're suffocating me. The words landed in my chest like a stone dropped into deep water. Heavy, final, no way to pull them back up. For a second, I couldn't speak. The air felt thick, like I was breathing through cotton. My eyes burned, but I refused to let tears fall in front of him. Not for this. Okay, I said finally. My voice sounded distant, like I was hearing it from another room. You want space? He seemed thrown by how calm I sounded. Don't do this dramatic martyr thing. I'm not being dramatic, I said. You told me what you need. I heard you. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, walked past him down the hall, into our bedroom. My body moved on autopilot. Closet, top shelf. The old black duffel bag I hadn't used since a college trip. I pulled it down and started packing. Jeans, shirts, underwear, toiletries, laptop, charger, wallet, essentials only. I waited for him to follow me, to backtrack, to say he didn't mean it, to say he was just angry and tired and could we please talk about this in the morning. He did follow me, to lean in the doorway, arms crossed over his chest. What are you doing? He asked. Giving you space, I said, folding a sweater. Callie, come on, he scoffed. I didn't mean it like... You meant it enough to say it, I cut in. And I'm not going to stay somewhere I'm apparently suffocating the person I'm supposed to marry. You're overreacting. Maybe, I said, but I'd rather overreact somewhere else. The zipper of the duffel bag sounded louder than it should have when I pulled it shut. Final. Sharp. I walked past him, grabbed my keys and phone from the little bowl near the door. He said my name once, softer. Callie. I paused, hand on the doorknob, and considered turning around. Instead, I opened the door and stepped out. The motel I ended up at was one of those places you pick because it's off the highway and open, not because you feel good about it. The room smelled like old carpet and cleaning products, the kind of scent that clung to your clothes. I checked in for 1 night, then 2, then 3. I called in sick to work, said I had a stomach bug, ordered takeout, picked at it, watched the same news cycle on the broken TV. I finally managed to coax back to life. I stared at the cracks in the ceiling until I could trace them with my eyes in the dark. My phone buzzed constantly the first night. Logan, Callie, come home. Logan, we need to talk. Logan, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Logan, please don't do this. I turned the screen face down on the nightstand and eventually just powered it off. On the 4th morning, I woke up to a shaft of sunlight cutting across the lumpy motel mattress and realized I couldn't stay there forever. I couldn't go back either. The thought of walking into that apartment, into that kitchen, into that version of myself that begged for crumbs of attention from someone who said I was suffocating him, it made my stomach twist. So I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I called my sister. Erin picked up on the 2nd ring. Hey, Cal, everything okay? I'd planned to ease into it. Instead, my voice cracked on the first word. No. There was a heartbeat of silence, then the sound of her moving, like she was already grabbing her keys. What happened? She asked. Logan, I said, and that was enough. She knew. Erin had heard the surface-level stories. Busy fiancé, canceled plans, the way my voice went tight when I said his name. What did he do? She said, sharper now. He said I'm suffocating him, I whispered, that he needs space from me, from my insecurities. So I left. Where are you? She demanded. A motel, I said. Off the highway. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, she said. Her tone shifted into the calm she used when I broke my arm in middle school and there was blood everywhere. Listen to me. You're coming to Denver. Stay with me as long as you need. We'll figure out the rest later. I can't just... Yes, you can, she cut in. You can pack your bag and get in your car and drive. I have a spare room and a coffee maker and 0 men telling you you're too much. That's more than you've got there. I let out a shaky laugh that tasted like salt. Are you sure? Callie, you're my sister, she said. Get in the car. So I did. I checked out of the motel, threw my duffel bag in the trunk, and started driving west. 10 hours of highway stretched out in front of me like a dare. I stopped once for gas, and once because my hands were shaking too hard to keep a straight line. I listened to a podcast for an hour, then turned it off when the host's voice felt like static. I tried music. Every song reminded me of something. Dancing in the kitchen with Logan, singing off-key in the car together, playlists we'd made on lazy Sundays. I turned that off too. Eventually, it was just the sound of my tires on asphalt and my own thoughts looping in circles. You're suffocating me. I need space. From you. By the time I pulled up to Erin's apartment in Denver, the sky was dark and my eyes felt like sandpaper. She was waiting outside in leggings and a hoodie, arms wrapped around herself against the chill. She didn't ask questions right away. She just wrapped me in a hug so tight it finally cracked something open in my chest, and I sobbed into her shoulder like I was 23 again, not 33. Inside, she shoved a mug of tea into my hands and pointed to the couch. Sit, she said. You can tell me what happened, or you can just stare at the wall. Either way, you're not going back there tonight. I stayed. 2 days later, I started looking for jobs. I updated my resume at Erin's kitchen table, eyes still swollen, heart still raw. I sent out applications like messages in bottles. Within a week, a remote data analysis position emailed me back. Then another. I interviewed in Erin's guest room with my blazer just off camera over sweatpants. 2 weeks later, I had an offer. A month after that, I signed a 6-month lease on a tiny studio apartment near downtown. I moved in with the same duffel bag I'd carried out of Logan's place, plus a few things I'd ordered online, cheap plates, a desk, a coffee maker, a mattress that came vacuum sealed in a box. The apartment was small, but it was mine. No shared closet, no passive-aggressive sighs when I asked about someone's day, no tension hanging in the air like fog. I didn't contact Logan. I didn't respond to his messages when my phone finally flickered back on. The texts came less often, then stopped altogether. Life settled into a rhythm. Work, dishes, sleep, repeat. I wasn't happy, exactly, but I wasn't drowning anymore either. I told myself that was enough. I told myself the story ended the night I walked out with my duffel bag. I had no idea it was only the first chapter. 3 months later, I almost believed myself. By then, the studio had stopped feeling like a temporary shelter and started feeling like, not home exactly, but something close enough. My routines had grown roots. Wake up at 6, lace up my running shoes, take the same path along the river while the city yawned itself awake. Running wasn't my thing before Denver. I used to joke that I only ran if something was chasing me or if the ice cream truck turned the corner too fast. But after everything with Logan, my body needed something it could do without asking permission. Put one foot in front of the other. Breathe in, breathe out. Pain that made sense. That Saturday in late June, the air was already warm at 7 a.m. The sky was washed out blue, the kind that promised a hotter day than anyone wanted. I ran my usual loop past the river, over the small footbridge, back toward my building. Sweat clung to the back of my neck, my ponytail damp. For 40 minutes, all I thought about was the rhythm of my feet on the concrete and the sound of my breath. No wedding that didn't happen. No man who said I was suffocating. By the time I turned onto my street, my mind was blissfully blank, which is probably why it took me a full 5 seconds to process the figure standing on the sidewalk outside my building. At first, he was just a shape, tall, still, leaning awkwardly near the entrance. Then he shifted, and the sun caught his profile. My heart stuttered. Logan. He looked different, thinner. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before, a tightness in his jaw I recognized from the rare times he'd let his work actually get to him. He wore jeans and a faded t-shirt I used to sleep in, the hem stretched, collar a little warped, and in his hands, pressed against his chest like an offering, were 2 small white sticks. I slowed to a walk because my legs suddenly didn't remember how to run. My brain took in the details out of order, his face, the way his fingers gripped the plastic, the faint pink lines on the tests. For a stupid, dizzy second, my thoughts misfired. I haven't felt sick. There's no way. We haven't even... Then my mind caught up with the math. We hadn't seen each other in 3 months. The tests were positive. Whatever this was, it wasn't mine. Callie, he said as I got closer. Hearing my name in his voice after so long was like pressing on a bruise I'd convinced myself had healed. I kept a few feet between us. The early morning quiet wrapped around us, broken only by the distant hiss of a bus and a dog barking somewhere down the block. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. He glanced down at his hands, then back up at me. "I needed to see you." My gaze dropped to the sticks. 2 cheap plastic tests, identical except for the faintly different brand logos, both with 2 clear lines, unmistakable even from a distance. "You couldn't send an email?" I asked. The sarcasm came out automatically, a last-minute attempt at armor. "This isn't an email conversation," he said. I looked at him, really looked. The dark circles, the weight loss, the almost panicked way he was watching my face like he was terrified of what he'd see there. "Are those real?" I asked. He nodded once. "Yeah." "How far along?" I forced out. The question tasted like rust. "About 10 weeks, he said. 10 weeks? My brain did the calculation faster than I wanted it to. 10 weeks back from late June put us in mid-April. "I left in March," I said slowly. His jaw tightened. "I know." "That means..." I swallowed. My throat felt raw, like I'd been screaming, though I hadn't raised my voice once. "That means whoever this belongs to, it's not mine." The way his eyes flinched told me he'd already had the same thought, probably replayed it 100 times. "No," he said quietly, "it's not." A woman walked past us on the sidewalk pushing a stroller. She gave us a quick glance, the sweat-soaked runner and the man holding pregnancy tests like an apology, and then quickly looked away, speeding up. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how exposed I felt in my tank top and running shorts. "So whose is it?" I asked. He hesitated just a fraction of a second too long. "Logan," I said. "Whose?" His fingers tightened around the plastic until his knuckles blanched. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, like he'd rehearsed this part and still hated every word. "It's Sabrina's," he said. "From work." The name landed like a stone dropped in a still pond, sending ripples through every memory I had of him saying it casually. Sabrina said this. Sabrina did that. Sabrina thinks it's funny when... "Your coworker Sabrina," I said. "The one you used to date forever ago? That Sabrina?" He winced. "Yeah." I stared at him, at the tests, at the crack in the sidewalk between us. "So let me get this straight," I said. "You show up outside my building 3 months after I left, holding pregnancy tests for a woman who is definitely not me, and what? I'm supposed to... What, exactly? Hug you? Help you brainstorm baby names?" "That's not why I'm here," he said quickly. "Then why are you here?" I snapped. "Because right now, it looks a lot like you got your ex pregnant and decided your former fiancé should be part of the fallout. We weren't..." He broke off, scrubbed a hand over his face. "We weren't together, not like that. Not at first." "Not at first?" I repeated. The words felt sour in my mouth. "You told me you two dated forever ago." Past tense. "It was," he said, almost pleading. "We broke up years before you and I got serious, but we stayed friends, co-workers." "Friends," I echoed. "Right." The air around us felt heavier, like the humidity had doubled in the last 30 seconds. "When?" I asked. He blinked. "What?" "When did it start?" I said. Whatever this was, the thing that got her pregnant with your baby. When did it start, Logan?" He looked away toward the river, like the answer might be written on the horizon. When he finally spoke, he stared at the ground. "January," he said. Everything in me went very, very still. "January," I repeated. "Callie." "So for 2 months before our big fight," I said, my voice shaking now, while I was losing sleep and Googling how to tell if you're too clingy and apologizing for asking why you were late, you were sleeping with your ex. "It wasn't like that," he said. "I was..." "Drunk?" I cut in. "Upset? Confused? You tripped and fell and your clothes fell off by accident? Pick one, Logan. I've heard them all." His face twisted. "We went out after work one night. I was upset you left." "I left in March," I snapped. "You just told me it started in January." He opened his mouth, closed it. The silence between us roared. "How many times?" I asked. He shook his head. "Does that matter?" "Yes," I said, "it does. How many times did you sleep with her while you were still engaged to me?" He swallowed hard. A few. How many is a few? I pushed. His shoulders slumped, as if the number itself was heavy. 6 or 7, he muttered. I laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It burst out of me, sharp and ugly, a laugh that had nothing to do with humor and everything to do with disbelief. The whole time, I said. The whole time I thought I was going crazy, asking too many questions, suffocating you. You were actually cheating on me, and you let me stand there in that kitchen and apologize for being insecure. I know, he said, his voice cracking. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. I hate myself for it. Well, that makes one of us, I said, because I spent months hating me. We stood there in the early morning heat, my sweat cooling uncomfortably on my skin, his guilt hanging between us like smoke. Where is she? I asked. Sabrina, where is she in all this? He let out a humorless huff of air. We're not together. Not really. Does she know you're here? I asked. Yes, he said. She knows. I told her I had to talk to you. And what does she want? I asked. Child support? You to step up? For me to pat you on the head and say you're doing the right thing? He flinched. She wants me to handle it, he said bitterly. Those were her words. Handle it, I repeated, another hollow laugh bubbling up. That's a really interesting phrase for deal with the consequences of my choices. I came because you deserve to know, he said. You deserve the truth. I owed you that much. You owed me the truth in January, I shot back. You owed me honesty when you started pulling away, not when there's a heartbeat on a screen and suddenly the lies aren't sustainable anymore. His eyes went glassy. For a second, I almost saw the man I thought I was going to marry, not the stranger in front of me with someone else's child growing 1,000 miles away. What do you want from me, Logan? I asked softly. Really? He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally forced out, I don't know, maybe for you not to hate me, for you to understand that I was messed up and scared and I handled it all wrong. I stared at him, at the tests, at the faint tremor in his hands. I can't give you that, I said. Something in his expression shattered. Then what can you give me? He asked. Exactly what you asked for, I said. Space. A tear slipped down his cheek. He swiped it away angrily, like it offended him to be caught crying. I'm sorry, he said, for everything. For how I treated you, for Sabrina, for lying, for making you feel like you were the problem when it was always me. I swallowed hard. Okay. That's it? He asked. Just okay? What else do you want me to say? I asked. That this doesn't matter? It does. It just doesn't change the fact that I walked away in March, and it turns out I was right to. He nodded slowly, as if each movement hurt. He turned to go, then stopped and looked back at me, eyes red. For what it's worth, he said quietly, you weren't suffocating me. My throat tightened. I was drowning in my own guilt, he continued, in the secrets, in everything I was doing behind your back. It was easier to call you suffocating than admit I was the one poisoning what we had. The words hit me harder than the original accusation ever did. For months, I had replayed that night in my head, picking apart every sentence, every glance, looking for the point where I became too much. And now, standing on the sidewalk outside my building with 2 positive pregnancy tests between us, he was telling me the truth I'd begged for when it still mattered. It didn't feel satisfying, it just felt empty. When did you realize that? I asked. That it wasn't me? He gave a broken half smile, about 2 seconds after you walked out with that duffel bag. Too bad it took 10 weeks and someone else's baby for you to say it out loud, I said. He nodded, as if he agreed. Goodbye, Callie, he said. Goodbye, Logan, I replied. He walked away, the test still clutched in his hand. I watched him until he turned the corner and disappeared. Then I went upstairs to my apartment, closed the door, and leaned back against it. The quiet pressed in from all sides, louder than any argument we'd ever had. I slid down to the floor, pulled my knees to my chest, and stared at the opposite wall. January echoed in my head like a curse. The whole time, I thought I was suffocating him with my questions. The whole time, he'd been burying me under his lies. I didn't call Erin right away. I should have. She was the logical choice. The one person who could absorb emotional impact like a crash pad and still hand me a glass of water afterward. But when I finally peeled myself off the apartment floor, my throat felt raw, and my brain was still trying to figure out whether the world was spinning or if that was just me. I showered, stood there under the too hot water until my skin turned pink and my mind quieted into static. I made coffee, sat on the floor of my studio, wrapped in a towel, watching steam curl up from the mug. It wasn't until the coffee got cold that I finally reached for my phone. Erin picked up immediately. Callie, what's wrong? You sound weird. He came here, I said. My voice sounded scraped out, like I'd left pieces of it on the pavement outside. Logan? She asked sharply. Yeah. Did he hurt you? Did he yell? Do I need to get in my car right now? And no, I said quickly. It wasn't like that. What happened? She pressed. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My throat worked uselessly, like the words were stuck. Erin waited, silent but present, the way she always had been in every major crisis of my life. Finally, I managed. He brought pregnancy tests. There was a long, stunned pause. For you? She asked, horrified. No, I whispered. Not for me. Another silence, this one sharper, heavier. Callie, she breathed. Oh my God. He cheated on me, I said. With Sabrina. Remember the coworker I told you about? The one whose name kept coming up? Yeah, she said quietly. It started in January. Erin swore so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. That son of a... Yeah, I said. He lied for months. And when things felt wrong, when I asked questions, he made me feel like I was imagining it, like I was paranoid. That wasn't paranoia, she said, her voice hard. That was your intuition screaming at you. I let out a shaky exhale. He called me suffocating while he was cheating. Erin was silent for a beat, and when she spoke again, she sounded controlled, in the way she got right before she threatened to ruin someone's life professionally or personally. He projected on you, she said. He was guilty and made you the villain. Classic deflection, textbook manipulation. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I'm so sorry, she added softly. But I'm also incredibly proud of you. For what? For walking away before you knew any of this. You saved yourself without needing to see the whole fire. A lump formed in my throat. I didn't know if it was grief or relief. Do you want me to come over? She asked. I can be there in 20 minutes. No, I said. Not right now. I just needed to tell someone. Needed to say it out loud. I'm here, she said. All day, all week, forever, whatever you need. I wiped at my eyes. Thanks. We hung up, and the apartment felt too quiet again. Echoey in a way that made me realize how many thoughts I was still avoiding. The next few weeks passed in a strange blur, a numb one. I'd expected anger to come first, or heartbreak. Something big and dramatic, something that demanded to be felt. But instead I got nothing. Or maybe not nothing. Maybe it was a quieter kind of pain, a cold one, the kind that settles into the bones instead of screaming on the surface. Work helped. My boss, a guy named Dean who wore the same 3 sweaters on rotation, had no idea what was happening in my personal life, but he kept giving me bigger projects. I kept finishing them fast, my fingers flying over the keyboard like they needed somewhere to channel the static inside me. You're on fire lately, he said one afternoon. I'm recommending you for a lead analyst slot next quarter. I nodded, said thank you, and went back to typing. The person I used to be, the woman who might have gone home and danced around her kitchen over a potential promotion, felt very far away. Running helped too, or hurt in a way that helped. Every time I felt the walls closing in, I'd lace up my shoes and run until my lungs burned and my legs shook. Physical pain was simple, predictable. It didn't lie to you or tell you that you were crazy. It just existed. 1 week after Logan showed up, the first text came. Logan, she's keeping it. Just thought you should know. I stared at the message for a solid minute before replying. Me, okay. He didn't text again that day. The next morning, I ran 10 miles. A month passed. My apartment started to feel less like a hideout and more like a place where a person could actually live. Then came the second text. Logan, Sabrina and I are going to try to make it work for the baby. I stared at those words too, not because they hurt, but because of how much they didn't. It occurred to me that this should have devastated me. That once upon a time, not that long ago, I'd imagined building a family with him. I had pictured him next to me in hospital rooms and tiny nurseries and holiday photos we'd send to relatives. But now all I could think was, better her than me. Me. Good luck. Logan, do you hate me? I read the message 3 times. Did I? For a long second, I waited for something to rise up. Rage, heartbreak, bitterness, something. But all I felt was absence. A hollow space where love used to live. Me. No, I just don't think about you anymore. I hit send and stared at the screen, half expecting regret to punch me in the chest. But it didn't. I set my phone down, grabbed my water bottle, and went for another run. 8 miles that time. Enough to exhaust the last trembling nerves in my body. Life kept moving. Slowly at first, like pushing a heavy cart uphill. Then, one day, it wasn't heavy anymore. Dean officially offered me the promotion. My paycheck got bigger, and my work laptop got upgraded. I bought myself a real bed frame, a rug that didn't shed, a lamp that didn't flicker when you looked at it wrong. Small things, but meaningful. Then something unexpected happened. I met someone new. His name was Miles. We met, of all places, at the coffee shop under my building when I knocked over an entire sleeve of cardboard cup holders. He'd grabbed one before it hit the floor. I think these things are secretly engineered to escape, he'd said, handing it back with a small, warm smile. I had laughed. Actually laughed, not the brittle, polite imitation I'd been doing for months. He was a teacher. Patient eyes, soft voice, wore button-ups with the sleeves rolled a little too neatly. Nothing flashy, nothing showy, just steady. The good kind of steady. We talked for 2 minutes, then 5, then somehow walked out of the shop with each other's numbers. We started dating 3 months later. On our third date, sitting in a booth that smelled faintly like syrup and old wood polish, I told him everything. Not every detail, but enough. I waited for him to shift in his seat, to judge me, to look at me differently. He didn't. Instead, he reached for my hand and said, "Everyone has a past. What matters is who you choose to be now." Something in my chest loosened. Something that had been tight since January. Weeks passed, then months. My life slowly rearranged itself into something fuller, warmer, more grounded. Erin asked me once if I regretted how things ended with Logan. I told her the truth. "No," I'd said. "He wanted space. I gave it to him permanently." And I meant it. Because here's what I finally understood. When someone calls you suffocating, it makes you question everything. Your instincts, your worth, your sanity. But I wasn't suffocating him. I was asking for honesty. He couldn't give me that because he was drowning in his own lies. He needed me to believe I was insecure and paranoid so he could justify betraying me. He needed me to be the villain so he could play the victim. Walking away that night in March was the best decision I ever made. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it freed me from a life built on half-truths and silent betrayals. Logan can have all the space he wants. I'll take my peace.